Larry Nichols, of course. Today is Tuesday, October 23rd. Larry, how you feeling today?
I'm alive and well.
I think people are pleased to hear that, Larry. Always good to have you on the program. You know, Larry, something that I know you're intimately familiar with has surprisingly come back into the news. We're going to be talking a little bit today about Troopergate, and we're talking about it in particular because Peter Smith has come back into the news. We've been talking quite a bit about Peter Smith for some time. He, of course, is the conservative fundraiser who's been a thorn in the Clinton side for some time. Larry, I don't know how directly familiar you are with Peter, but of course, he was one of the pivotal figures in the original Troopergate scandal. Peter had started a fund to help provide financial assistance to some of the Arkansas state troopers who had come forward with allegations of misconduct on the part of then Governor Clinton. What can you tell us first about the Troopergate scandal in general, and if you have any direct knowledge of Peter Smith's involvement or David Brock's involvement, what can you tell us about this?
Okay, Peter Smith, I had little, if any, direct involvement with him, or at least I don't remember any. Now, relative to him raising money for the state troopers, I can tell you this: he didn't do a very good job of it because they were broke as a result of their stance. And I'm talking about Larry Patterson, Roger Perry, and L.D. Brown. They got nothing. So that's the extent of that. Now, Troopergate, you have to understand how it happened. I had come out in Star magazine, and I had broken the story of Bill Clinton with the women when nobody else in Arkansas would dare talk about it. I came out, did the piece, and I guess maybe 6 months or better went by, and I was alone. Then I got a call from an attorney. His name was Gary Johnson, and he said he knew I was telling the truth. And of course, in that day, I'm wondering, now, wait a minute, if you're an attorney and you're going to help me, you're going to lose your legal practice because they'll destroy you. So it didn't make sense, but I went along with it. And then come to find out, Gary Johnson was a special attorney. He was a neighbor to Jennifer Flowers.
Right.
So when Bill Clinton was claiming that he never went to Jennifer Flowers, here was this Gary Johnson, the attorney, who knew better because he saw Bill going in and out all the time. So we met. He called me. We agreed to meet. This was on a Wednesday. We agreed to meet on the following, I think it was Friday, Thursday or Friday. And as it turned out, when we were to have our meeting, I showed up to his office, but he didn't.
Oh, the lawyer, right.
The lawyer. And so we're sitting here, and the lawyer didn't show up, which is odd. His secretary said he never did that. So on that Saturday, and there's a reason I'm telling you all this in this chronology. That Saturday, I go to his home, his apartment, there in the Quapaw Towers, and we find him on the floor. He had been beaten, bludgeoned to within literally an inch of his life. And somebody had broken in and literally, with great precision, beat this man to within literally an inch of his life. We take him to the hospital, we get him tended to. He was so scared by what had happened that when he was able to leave the hospital, he had his parents take him to Jonesboro, Arkansas, where he was from, not back to Little Rock. He wanted to go and live in Jonesboro. Well, when all of this happened, it had the signature, the beating, because I knew Patterson and Perry and Brown well. It had the signature, Jason, of them.
Of the troopers.
Of the troopers. And I had to know, you know, did they beat Johnson up? Did they attempt to kill him, or at least get him nearly dead? And I talked, I think it was Patterson first and then Perry. They said they didn't. To this day, bless their hearts, I still think it was probably them, but that's neither here nor there. But after that beating, David Brock, who was this reporter at the time, who had been aggressive, very aggressive towards roasting Clinton, and he was about the only one that was. Brock had picked up and was covering the story of the, you know, of the troopers, and there was Troopergate. He was pursuing it and getting it out.
Right. Now, this is very surprising for a lot of people to hear, Larry, because, of course, David Brock now is famous for starting Media Matters for America, and he's very much a left-wing guy now.
Yeah, well, tell me about it. So we're all sitting there. The troopers are going to come out. Brock is, you know, he's going to do the story and get the word out. We had everything lined up, and then the first of hundreds of betrayals that were going to come at me over the years came from David Brock.
What do you mean?
Because right when, I'm sorry?
Well, how so?
Well, right when the story was supposed to come out. Now, this story, folks, is telling the truth about the troopers. I mean, they could prove what they were saying. This was no joke. They could prove what they were saying. He was going to cover it. He was going to write it. Everything was going to be, you know, on the up and up. But the story didn't run. Well, we couldn't figure out why the story didn't run. Finally, I talked to Brock. Well, Brock felt like he had been hurt. And he was upset.
What was he upset about?
Well, he was upset because it was found out that he was a homosexual.
Right, right. And people need to remember, this was 1992, so being a conservative and being gay was sort of incompatible at that time.
You betcha. I mean, that's what I was fixing to say, folks. In that period of time, in that day, that wasn't a good thing. And so Brock felt like he was being, I don't know, belittled because of his, whatever you call it. And maybe he was, I don't know. He wasn't by us or any of us. We didn't say anything to him, or at least not to him. And so he turned. Then the troopers were picked up, I believe, by Larry Clayman, if I'm not mistaken.
I didn't know that.
And yeah, and Clayman handled getting the word out about them and handling a press conference, much as he did with, you know, other anti-Clinton people. So that's the way it went down. The troopers told the truth, and for telling the truth, they were set up in a fake car wreck. They had a minor wreck in a police car. And I'm talking about very, very minor. But because they were against Clinton and because Clinton had so much power, they were able to take that minor police car accident, and the Clintons, along with the media, much as they do today, the Clintons, along with the media, portrayed Patterson and Perry as though they wrecked the car on purpose to get money.
Right.
I swear to you folks, nothing has changed. They're doing today what they did then. The same MO, all the way.
Right. So there's a couple things I wanted to... Sorry. No, you go ahead.
Well, the only thing that's different is now they have adopted, the Democratic Party has adopted their method and practices where it used to be just the Clintons.
Right, right. So I've been looking into this a bit, and of course there is some extremely compelling video testimony from Roger and Larry. What were the troopers' names? Roger Patterson?
Roger Perry, Larry Patterson.
Roger Perry and Larry Patterson.
And I'm telling you, yes, and for 3 or 4 years, we became the closest friends you can imagine anyone would have, because we had to stay alive.
And are both of these guys still alive?
Yes.
Do you ever speak to them anymore?
Yeah. I mean, we don't have the occasion to get together as we did, but yes.
Huh. I'd be interested in speaking to them. Maybe we could arrange an interview where we could get them on the show, because I'd be very interested in speaking to them. There's a YouTube video. I'll include a link to this video in our description when you and I are done speaking, Larry. But these two state troopers give very compelling testimony. They talk about the accident. They talk about the subsequent injuries they suffered and the insurance problems they had in paying for their medical bills. And I mean, it was very interesting to me to see that, because most people, I mean, these guys, like anybody who comes to challenge the Clintons, have basically been totally discredited. There was even an apology, very weird, unusual apology issued by David Brock in a 1998 article for Esquire magazine. And he said he wished he had never written the original story in the American Spectator, which basically broke this thing open. And he said that, I mean, he stopped short of saying that the troopers had lied. But, I mean, again, you know, you come out with an apology like this, and the spin on it essentially becomes that this never happened. It's really amazing how the Clintons are so effectively able to spin away every single story. But of course, we've got your testimony about this. And just last week, I interviewed a survivor of Bill Clinton's sexual assault. That was Leslie Millwee, and she gave firsthand testimony stating that she saw Bill Clinton walking out of her news station there in Arkansas after sexually assaulting her and basically ejaculating through his clothing on her. He then went out, and there was a state trooper waiting by the car to drive him, and she yelled at Bill Clinton and reported to me just last week that she distinctly recalls seeing a state trooper drive them around. And if, you know, it's quite simple to find a lot of testimony from a lot of different people talking about how the Clintons basically rampantly abused their power by having state employees carry out all sorts of, you know, common tasks like picking up their dry cleaning and driving them around and all that kind of stuff. That is not what these state employees were hired to do, and a specific violation of the law.
No, absolutely. You know, Roger and Larry quite frequently, several times a week to be exact, would pick Bill up and take him to Dan Lassiter's office. And when he got to Lassiter's office, Lassiter kept a big bowl, kind of like you'd think it'd be a sugar bowl or something, great big on his desk. Except it wasn't sugar, it was cocaine.
Right.
And they would take Bill there, and he would zip in and get him a hit off of that or whatever you do.
Right.
And come back out and get in the car. Then he used them specifically to go after women that were, you know, somebody that Bill wanted. For example, he used the state police, Danny Ferguson, to go get Paula Jones. He used them all the time for all sorts of things that basically chauffeurs and whatever would do.
Right. Now, Larry, just so people don't think that we're throwing out wild allegations, Dan Lassiter has openly confessed to being a drug dealer, a cocaine distributor, to providing cocaine to, I believe, girls as young as 16 years of age with the specific intent of getting them addicted to cocaine and turning them into prostitutes. Isn't that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's a close friend of Bill Clinton, who's basically, I mean, that's hardcore gangster stuff. That's not cheating on your taxes or embezzling $100,000. That's destroying lives, dealing drugs, all the stuff we really want people to be in prison for.
Well, remember, it was Dan Lassiter that Bill Clinton pardoned, and he was found guilty of peddling dope.
Wow.
And it was Dan Lassiter that set up the MENA operation.
Right. Is Dan Lassiter
and
still alive?
They were the closest of friends.
Is Lassiter still alive?
Yes.
Huh. What's he up to these days?
I think he still has his brokerage.
Wow.
Business.
Crazy.
Yeah. Look, when you're buddies with Bill Clinton and Stevens, you got no problem.
Huh. So the website Wiki Spooks talks about Dan Lassiter as having met Roger Clinton at a racetrack. Of course, that's Bill Clinton's half-brother.
Yeah.
And he moved to Arkansas. Certainly, Roger Clinton has been closely linked to lots of cocaine deals. The FBI recorded Roger Clinton on tape purchasing cocaine and even saying that he needs a little extra for his brother, meaning Bill, because he's got a nose like a vacuum cleaner.
Man, that story's not right.
No?
I had put a camera in a TV set in a hotel in Hot Springs. And we set it up so that we could catch Roger and then use Roger to get to Bill. And it was Roger that came in, sat on a couch across from the TV, and that's when he said the infamous line, you know, got to get something for my brother because he's got a nose like a Hoover vacuum cleaner.
Right.
Well, when we got that, the reason I say that isn't right, because when we got that, Tommy Goodman, who who was director of the state police, ended up with the tape.
Who was it that ended up with it?
I'm sorry?
Who was it that ended up with the tape?
Tommy Goodwin.
Uh-huh.
Tommy Goodwin. He was director of the Arkansas State Police. And when I found out he got it, I went ballistic. Because I knew, I knew Tommy, and, I've been around all these guys forever. So I went over to the state police headquarters and demanded to get that tape. And Tommy said he didn't have it. Somehow they had lost it.
Huh.
And to my knowledge, that tape has never shown up again. Everybody knows it existed.
Right. Right. At some point, I saw it on YouTube. I'm looking for it right now, but I'm having some difficulty finding it. It
may be out now, but I'm just telling you, I went ballistic. Now,
right.
If it was the FBI, Tommy Goodwin wouldn't have it. He's state police, not FBI.
Got it. So perhaps I was wrong. But it was some sort of, he got arrested as a result of that, right?
Who?
Roger? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
He got arrested. Matter of fact, he got put in jail. He didn't get a pardon. Laster did.
Roger Clinton did not get pardoned by his brother.
No, he didn't get pardoned.
Well, so let me take you back to David Brock for a moment, because I want to tie this back to Peter Smith. Peter Smith has come into the news recently because in 2017, Peter Smith was putting together some funds and some individuals who he wanted to collaborate with in trying to purchase the 33,000 stolen emails. Now, that number 33, it shows up with such bizarre frequency, Larry, and I know you've told us about Hillary's penchant for witchcraft and voodoo and some bizarre things. And I have observed that when these numbers, 33, etc., they appear frequently, it's sort of an indicator where they're using this technique called steganography, where they have encoded messages placed into things that are out in the open. And someone who doesn't know what that 33 indicates just thinks it's no big deal, we've got the number 33 there. But people who do know what's going on will understand that that's an indicator that this is somehow, there's something up with this story. I don't think there's 33,000 emails. We've heard that the Anthony Weiner laptop had something like 650,000 emails, and that sounds more like it, right?
Yeah.
So Peter Smith was pursuing these emails, and in the course of doing that, he was communicating with Charles Ortel, and Charles has some emails from him. Charles and Peter had been introduced under the pretense that Peter knew a lot about politics and Charles was doing research into the Clinton Foundation. Charles never got directly involved in this hunt for the emails, but there's a lot of attention on Peter's activities now from Robert Mueller's investigation. And there's been a lot of reporting from this guy, Shane Harris, who writes for the Wall Street Journal. Now, the thing that's interesting is Shane Harris has reported a number of things that are directly contradicted by emails that Peter sent to Charles. Now, certainly Shane Harris would have had no way to see these emails that were in Charles's possession, but yet he wrote all these stories about Peter, saying that Peter was in contact with Russian hackers who worked for the Russian government and that he was obtaining the emails. And Shane Harris basically wrote several quotes that he attributed to Peter, claiming that he had interviewed Peter, but Peter wrote an email directly to Charles saying that he had an off-the-record conversation with Shane Harris. and that contradicts how Shane reported it. The other thing is, there were a number of things that Shane said that were in direct contradiction to what Peter was saying. Shane said Peter Smith had sought out Shane. However, we have an email exchange between Shane Harris and Peter Smith's much younger assistant, Jonathan Safran. So as far as I can tell from the emails, the way it actually went was that Shane Harris of the Wall Street Journal contacted Jonathan Safran and said, hey, can you please have Peter contact me? Then Peter said, hey, I'm contacting you, Shane. And then Shane went on to the Rachel Maddow show and started saying that Peter sought him out. So my question is, why is Shane deliberately obfuscating the facts about how he first came into contact with Peter? And is there a connection between David Brock and Shane Harris?
Well, I don't know about the connection between Shane Harris and David Brock, but what all's going on is Hillary Clinton getting ready to run for president in 2020.
Why do you say that?
This is what happens. You're going to see them start what they call clearing the road, okay? Very important that they do it. They will start out by clearing the road, which means they're going to get rid of any and everyone, including yours truly, that poses any threat to Hillary and her campaign. You got to remember, Hillary will not run for president, or she will run for dog catcher in the traditional way. She won't. She is a resume person. She believes that if she's got the perfect resume, that's all she's got to have, and she academically wins. I fought with her over and over and over. I mean, she had no compunction at all to play the silly game of politics. She didn't. You know, her philosophy was, and it's a good one, I'll admit, it's reasonably good, eliminate the competition and compare your resume to your opponents, and then use the media, see if this doesn't make sense, use the media to make your opponent out to do whatever he's got to do to lose, and you to be whatever you've got to be to win. It doesn't matter what you really are. It doesn't matter what you really do. It doesn't. You just put it out. Reality is perception.
Wow. Yeah, of course.
That's the way they run. So I'm telling you, everything that you're describing, all of the anomalies and stuff that, you know, is a little bit out of sync, that's a Hillary campaign.
Right.
It's the beginning of a Hillary campaign.
So let's talk for a minute.
Dog catcher to president.
Right. Let's talk for a minute, Larry, some more about David Brock. He wrote this article for the American Spectator that basically broke open the story that it was called His Cheatin' Heart. And this is all about Bill Clinton's rampant, you know, I think someone once described it as a near psychotic inability to keep his pants on, where he just was running around town, basically doing cocaine and having sex with all kinds of women. There were people who were in charge of controlling bimbo eruptions, trying to keep a lid on all of that. And David Brock wrote this, you know, big, full article. He was, you know, going against the Clintons and revealing what at the time was a huge scandal. I found it interesting to note that there was another Troopergate scandal having to do with Sarah Palin. And I wonder if that wasn't a manufactured scandal to just confuse future searches for this Troopergate, because it's not something that a lot of people really talk about anymore. But I mean, again, when I have firsthand testimony from a survivor of Bill Clinton's sexual assaults, Leslie Milwee was a very credible witness who gave us a lot of details. She spoke about some of the issues that she saw in Dr. Christine Blasey Ford's testimony relative to her own recollections of such an attack. And she came right out and corroborated what Roger and Larry have said, that state troopers were in fact used to drive Bill Clinton around. She was one of the women that Bill had a sexual encounter with, albeit non-consensual. Are you aware of Leslie Milwee, Larry? She was about 20 at the time that it occurred, and she was a TV news reporter who was covering the Cuban crisis.
Yeah.
You know her?
Yes. Yes.
What can you say about Leslie?
Well, all I can say is she was a reporter, and I'm sure she probably didn't tell you, but she did pad a story or two for Bill.
Pad it?
Yeah, I mean, until I think that happened, that incident, she was somewhat a fan of Bill's. Her stories.
I see.
Were favorable to Bill.
Got it.
But
got it.
So were all of the local networks.
Right. And that's
now,
probably...
I'm going to tell you something. It's going to sound tacky.
Sure.
But I'm going to tell you something you need to know.
Please.
When I came out against Bill, women came to me from everywhere, having stated they had been with Bill. And it got so problematic that it was just very difficult to know who really did. I mean, who actually did, have a fling with him.
Right.
And so I ended up developing a trick that got me through it.
Okay.
And it's a trick that you will probably need to use if you proceed on checking into different people claiming to have affairs with Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how to say it other than just to say it.
Yeah.
But Bill Clinton has about a 2-inch Peter.
How could you possibly know that? I mean, 2 inches, that can't be.
Yeah, that's when he's fired up, so to speak.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, when you're with a woman, if they don't know that, then they wasn't with him.
Huh.
Now, I'm telling you, that is true. That's absolutely true. You can ask Paula Jones. You can ask anybody that's verified been with Bill. That's the first thing they all tell you.
The presidential penis is unusually short.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, it's unusually short, and it bends to the left.
You got a lot of details on the Peter.
Had to. Well, I had to. You don't go accusing people of what I accuse them of.
Right.
And not have your I's dotted and T's crossed.
Right.
I guess that's what you would say. I don't know.
Right.
But, no, that's true. 100% true. Now, it was funny when I started saying that on the radio because women would claim they'd been with them, but they didn't know that.
Right.
There would be a psychiatrist that would call into the radio show and tell of the clinical name for that disease or whatever. And they'll tell you, you got somebody that has that problem has to get quantity, not quality.
Okay.
And it was funny.
Right.
But anyway, this is something that has to be dealt with because it is imperative that we know the truth.
Right. Well, off of Bill Clinton's penis for a moment, I wanted to come back to David Brock, because it's very strange to me that someone would be so much against the Clintons, as Brock was, and then become, you know, he's basically working for the Clintons right now. And of course, you know, publishing this this apology and all that, it just seems very strange. Now, there's someone else who kind of fits that mold, and I'm thinking, of course, about the guy who wrote the book The Strange Death of Vince Foster, a book that
we talking about Chris Ruddy.
Exactly. I'm talking about Christopher Ruddy, who really dug into the strange death of Vince Foster and raised a lot of questions about that death. This was also in 1993, a lot of activity as Bill Clinton had transitioned from governor of Arkansas to president of the United States. I guess they were busy sort of scrubbing his reputation, or whatever you would call that. But, you know, Chris Ruddy wrote this book, The Strange Death of Vince Foster. The book, interestingly, has gone out of print and is quite difficult to find now. But the other thing that I find very strange is that after writing this book, very critical of the Clintons, very much questioning the death of Vince Foster, Christopher Ruddy is now friends with the Clintons, and his news agency, Newsmax, is funded by the Clintons. And I'm showing everyone right now a picture of Chris Ruddy hanging out and smiling with Bill Clinton. What's going on here, Larry, that all these opponents of the Clintons get turned around to their allies?
Oh my God, Jason, I was watching, I think it was Fox and Friends or one of them. And here was Ruddy, and I was there the day he came on. And I heard him say, "I'm sorry I wrote the stuff about Bill."
Wow.
I'm telling you, when I heard that, I mean, I was crushed.
But see, it's the same.
You have to understand business, all right? You have to understand business. This is why what you're doing with your program, what do you call it? The
Patreon.
Patreon. That's why it's so important. That's why I'm so adamantly in support of your Patreon program. It's because this cannot happen again. We can't let this happen again. The Clintons will get to anybody. If they can't get to you with just charisma and his magic, they'll buy their way to you. They'll buy you. And that's what you're seeing right there. Now, Brock's different. David Brock's different. Brock did it out of spite because of the way he was treated in his mind.
Really?
But Ruddy he just sold out.
Well, let me ask you this, Larry, because what we've heard in the testimony from the Arkansas State Troopers, and I've heard this from other people as well, and to some extent I'm experiencing this personally. It seems like the way these campaigns go is that there is a coordinated reputation destruction, financial destruction, and then the target of this campaign is basically left in ruin. In the case of these Arkansas State Troopers, they also had physical injuries coupled with medical bills that needed to be paid, and so they're in a real tight financial spot. Now, when I look at Christopher Ruddy and David Brock, you know, those look like two guys who are doing quite well. Christopher Ruddy, he's the head of Newsmax.
No.
No?
Let me tell you, Chris Ruddy, I helped him start Newsmax. That's why I'm so bitter.
Okay.
I literally brought him with me on all the talk shows, raising the monies he had to have to start it when he and Joseph Ferris split up.
Uh-huh.
Now, I'm telling you, Ruddy was in trouble. It cost a lot of money to run his operation, especially the way he did. You know, at that time, he may still be doing it, I don't know, but at that time, Chris was printing a magazine. He was still sending out a magazine.
Right.
I don't know if he still does. If he is, he's in financial trouble now. But it takes a lot of money to run his operation.
Right.
And so, no, he's not safe financially. No way, no how.
Perhaps I misspoke. What I meant was he's not, eating out of a dumpster. He's got a company. The Clintons put some amount of money into Newsmax, I believe. And so what I'm sort of seeing, and obviously David Brock is very successful. He's got Media Matters for America. He's tightly linked to John Podesta, who obviously is tightly linked to the Clintons. And I'm just wondering if the tactic is not to destroy the reputation of the person, financially decimate the person, so now they're in a position where they can't get a job, they have no money, they're desperate, and then if they don't kill the person, I mean, because if you get someone like Ruddy or someone like Brock, who is a huge critic, to come out and apologize, there's so many people who will say, oh, you see, that whole story went away. The guy who wrote it even apologized.
That's right. Well, that means more than most anything else, because then they can say, look, he was an ardent hater. But now, look, he's investigated, he's followed it, and after all these years, he's realized he's been wrong. That's pretty powerful.
But the weird thing, Larry, is in both cases, neither gentleman came forward and said, hey, there's new information that indicates that I was wrong. They just said that they regretted writing it. All of the information that Christopher Ruddy presented in The Strange Death of Vince Foster is valid information. There was blood dried running in 4 different directions on Foster's face. Even though he was lying downhill, there was dried blood running uphill in defiance of gravity. And the gun that was in his hand, 2 separate investigators said in over 30 cases of gun-and-mouth suicides that they had investigated, never did the gun stay in the dead guy's hand.
Let me tell you, if Chris ever tried to disavow that book, because I helped him write that book.
Wow.
I mean, a lot of the documentation and stuff that nobody could get, I got.
Huh.
And gave it to him for the book. So he goes and tries to discredit that book, he'll have me all over him.
Right.
All over him. Now, I'm going to tell you, David Watkins, to show you how they work, I had come out in Star Magazine. That's what broke it. Then they did a 2-punch with Star Magazine. And then they did a 3rd story, and we're doing the 4th. David Watkins, friend of Clinton, owns Southwest Polling, came to my house in a white van, parked in my front yard, in front of witnesses, and had a check for me for $1 million. $1 million.
$1 million?
$1 million. And I could have that check. But all I had to sign, all I had to do was sign this instrument that said what I had been saying about the Clintons was wrong.
Right.
That I had lied.
So what happened?
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
Now, Larry, I'm looking around for Star Magazine. I put in Star Magazine and Larry Nichols. I got this LA Times article that I think you and I have spoken about before from January 26, 1992. Says Clinton accuser to drop lawsuit. Larry Nichols says case alleging infidelity by presidential candidate has gone way too far. Arkansas governor and wife will appear on TV. So this is January 1992. Prior to the election, Bill Clinton was not widely known at this point. And here's the LA Times saying that you're dropping the suit and saying it was a mistake to bring it up.
Yeah, well, I didn't, and I didn't.
So this is made up by the LA Times.
Look. Well, yeah, I mean, just like everything else they do.
Wow. Why can't
I going to argue that story?
Why can't I find Star Magazine? Is this the British Star Magazine? No.
No, Star Magazine was a part of the, what is it?
Like the Inquirer or something, right?
You know, the magazine that's still out now where all of the space aliens and the stars.
Inquirer?
Inquirer. It was... Yes, Star Magazine, Inquirer, all of them are owned by the same corporate.
Is it still functioning, Star Magazine?
That's funny. That the biggest story in Star Magazine's history, in their history, they had never had a story that had, well, Stephen Edwards, who was the reporter for Star, he came, they had to do 4 releases of the first article because they'd sold out that many.
Huh.
And here you are today, you can't find it? Are you kidding me?
Well, I put in, okay, wait a minute. I put in Star Magazine and Bill Clinton, and now I see Monica talks, I see Bill Clinton assaulted me. Let's see if we can find this article, starmagazine.com, Bill Clinton. I was having a difficult time finding it earlier, and certainly Star Magazine, it's mostly about, you know, celebrity gossip. So why was this the magazine that you chose to deal with?
I'm going to tell you, that magazine did a hell of a job for me.
They did.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you got to realize Star Magazine, I still do a lot of stories for the Inquirer, a lot.
Uh-huh.
But it's because they have such an audience. I mean, you cannot imagine how many people read those things.
No, I'm sure. It's interesting that we can't, obviously they wouldn't have been on the internet in 1992, but we're finding articles from the LA Times, etc. This is all talking about, you know, Monica Lewinsky coming out now and talking about different things with Donald Trump and Bill Clinton on the down low. It says, is former President Bill Clinton gay? Shocking. It's an expose. Well, it's very difficult to find this original article in Star Magazine, but so the LA Times lied about what you had said.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Yeah. Well, I mean,
but,
again,
you know, I didn't have the wherewithal to compete and to, you know, to fight it. You know, what could I do?
Right. Right, and obviously, back at that time, Larry, you had no voice at all. You put something out in Star Magazine, and LA Times says, Larry said this, you can't go on a podcast, you can't appear on YouTube and speak for yourself.
Nope. I wasn't even at that time doing much talk radio. It hadn't even started up.
Right. This is a much different time.
And I literally had nowhere to go.
So when I look back and I see this connection between David Brock and Peter Smith, basically, and you're right, Peter Smith did not do a very good job of raising money. According to Wikipedia, which may or may not be correct, it says that Peter Smith had paid about $80,000, including a $5,000 payment to David Brock. Now, I mean, we're not talking about 1950 when you could buy a Cadillac for $5,000. This is 1993. This is not that much money. 80,000, 5,000. We're not talking about hundreds of thousands or millions. Or, you know, Charles Ortel details the crimes of the Clinton Global Initiative and the Clinton Foundation. We're talking about billions. So for Peter Smith to be paying out 80,000 or 5,000, it's not that much. But Smith had said that he set up a Troopergate whistleblower fund. I think the idea at the time was that they wanted to get troopers to come forward and admit to this, but I think most of them realized that their lives would be destroyed and there, you know, just too much downside for them to even do it. But I find it interesting that there's this connection going all the way back to the 90s between Peter Smith and David Brock. And we know that Cheryl Atkinson has written the book, The Smear, all about David Brock and his various entities going out of their way to destroy the reputations of journalists and anyone who's looking into anything that basically the clients of David Brock don't want to have looked into. And Cheryl goes into exhaustive detail about how her computers were hacked, how she was targeted, and all kinds of crazy things went on. I can't help but think that with my coverage of Peter Smith and my work with Charles Ortel talking about the Clinton Foundation, you know, there are 2 lawsuits pending against me, one from Robert David Steele and one from David Swigert, the brother of George Webb Swigert. I wonder if these are not intended to put the type of reputation destruction and financial destruction on me that is the classic hallmark of these Clinton-esque tactics that you now say have permeated the entire Democratic Party.
Yeah. I would say you can bet on it. I would. I mean, I'm just telling you, you summed it up when you say Clinton's running for president, Hillary's running for president.
How do we know she's going to do that?
You say that. Well, number one, she's out on tour, her and Bill.
That's true.
Now, Hillary wouldn't be out on tour. Hillary's not a people person. She don't like people. Period. She don't like people.
Right.
So for her to be out, quote unquote, on tour tells me without any shadow of any doubt the old girl is running. And then she's raising money. What the hell is she raising money for? I mean,
they're always doing that.
Having money, but I'm telling you, I know her. And then, on top of everything else, they put the word out that I have gotten, several people have gotten it for me as well, that she's not going to run.
Right.
If I'm still around.
Sorry, say again?
She's not going to run if I'm still around.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really.
Wow. That's cause for concern.
So, yeah, it is. You bet it is.
Why would she say that?
So,
she ran last time while you were around when she ran against Donald Trump.
Yeah, she won't do it again.
Huh.
She knows this time that if she tries to run, that I'll stop her again.
Wow.
That all the stuff will come back out again. And you just have to know Hillary, Jason.
Yeah.
She don't like that.
Right, right.
Look, they don't like you doing back to them what they do to you. Trust me.
Well, Larry, we're getting close to the end of our hour here. I definitely want to let everyone know that they should be visiting nicholslive.com. That's Larry's website where you can find out all the information you would want to know about Larry. He's got his blog posts on there. He's got his contact information, and of course, he's got the link to donate, to contribute to Larry financially and help support him. If you support what we're doing here and you like listening to Larry, I think he's giving us some invaluable insights into the history and the patterns and practices of the Clintons. Larry is on GoFundMe, and you can find the link there at nicholslive.com. You can also reach him on PayPal, and you can email Larry at nicholslive@aol.com. Larry, is there anything you wanted to leave everyone with this afternoon before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I'd like to. You know the near misses that our ships have had in the ocean with the Chinese vessels, etc., warships?
Yes, yes.
On our next program, I would like to discuss the fact that there's no way our ships with their redundant systems could allow us to hit another ship or get within 60 feet or 100 feet or whatever. It's just impossible.
Right.
Unless you know what Bill Clinton did.
Right.
Bill Clinton gave the contract, I thought, for just our F-22 fly-by-wire aircraft platforms. Gave the construction or the building of the computer, onboard computer. Well, it turns out, Jason, guess what? He gave them the contract to build the onboard computer on our naval vessels as well.
And we've heard about these hidden chips that have been placed in so many devices that allow the Chinese to infiltrate the electronics.
Yeah. Think about it. Think of the near misses that we've had with our ships nearly hitting. It makes you wonder if China's getting ready for something, that's all. But I will find out more before next week's program. But I think we ought to talk about it because that is a critical issue.
Okay, that sounds definitely
unbelievably
like
critical.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Larry, thanks for joining me again today. I really do enjoy getting your insights and hearing these firsthand stories about things that the Clintons would like us to all forget about, but are remarkably relevant when we look at the people that were involved then and what's going on today. And particularly if what Larry says is correct, and I tend to agree with you that Hillary certainly at least wants to run for president again. Whether or not the Democrats will allow her to do that remains to be seen. But Larry, I can't thank you enough for joining me.
That's the other iffy thing.
Right.
That I think she's going to cross the barrier of funding so much that they won't be able to turn her down. I don't think the DNC wants her to run. I don't think they can stop her.
But you're predicting right here on Crowdsource the Truth, October 23rd, 2018, that we will see a Clinton-Trump standoff again in 2020.
Oh, yeah. Well, if she makes it through the primary, yeah.
Wow.
She's running, so don't doubt it. Do whatever you want to do, but put it in the bank. She's running.
I do not doubt it. I really appreciate what you're telling us, Larry, and I'm going to continue to look into this relationship between David Brock and Peter W. Smith, and I'm going to continue looking into the strange death of Peter W. Smith. Everybody can get Larry on nicholslive.com. Please go over there and take a look and donate to Larry. He needs our financial support. Everybody who's coming out in alternative media with news and insights that are along the lines of what people want to hear, but CNN and Newsmax and MSNBC and Fox are not putting out, it's really important that this becomes user-supported, listener-supported, community-supported. So please go to nicholslive.com, and please, if you can, go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Become a monthly sponsor. You're going to enjoy a lot of exclusive content over there. Larry, I want to wish you a pleasant afternoon. Thanks for joining me. I'll speak to you next week, okay?
Sounds great, buddy. Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you all. See you.